Hello, and welcome to the G3 Pulse podcast. Joining me today is Max Niehusen, the CEO of one of the fastest growing slot studios in the gaming industry, Booming Games. Max, thank you very much for coming on.
Hi, William. Nice to meet you.
So it's great to have you on. Over the course of our chat, we'll be discussing kind of content strategy, operator relationships, and whether you think that there is a lack of appetite for innovation in the iGaming industry. But to kick us off, could you just begin by describing Booming Games' business journey so far? How long has the company been operating? What gap did you see in such a competitive market?
Sure. It's been roughly 8.5 years now, so that's obviously a long time, as you can imagine, and I could tell you about that for hours, but the short story is roughly 8.5 years ago, I and my partners, we founded Booming Games. And to be very honest, at the beginning, it was more of a family and friends dream. So we were a handful of people. We were very interested in the market. We didn't really bring in a lot of experience. So I myself come from the creative industry. I worked at film and television as a producer and so on, and therefore had a lot of creative background. And we were, I would say, a handful of people, which is obviously difficult to achieve something. But we were at the time where Flash just changed to HTML5. And we kind of used that as one of our advantages to say, okay, if we now concentrate on developing everything purely in HTML5 and do that in a fast and efficient way, we might be one of the first guys to basically offer their content in purely HTML5. And that's what we did. In my personal opinion, I would say nearly every startup or a lot of startups have that at the beginning. So in the first 4 to 4.5 years, we had a lot of ups and downs. So there were great times where everything grew, where we released amazing games, where the platform was stable. And then there were downs where things happened we were just not experienced with. And that changed, and we gained a lot of experience. And I would say roughly 4.5 years ago, so a year or so before COVID came in, we got a strong push. We increased the team members. We released more games, more good games. We had more running games, so a runner every now and then. And now we're looking at basically doubling our growth nearly every year on year, which I find very impressive. We have 150 employees, so we've grown to a very big team or large team. And I'm very proud of it, and it's going extremely well for us at the moment.
Whilst we're going to be talking about Booming Games, I guess there's a lot we could discuss about you personally, how you go from being a TV producer to kind of the CEO of a fast-growing slot studio, but we'll have to leave that one for another time. On the content strategy front, how have you found that with scaling up, it has changed? How do you create content that allows kind of your operator partners to keep slot catalogs fresh while still meeting player expectations of what is a Booming Games game?
Well, I would say, first of all, it's not only the games, right? So it's the perfect balance between maintaining and keeping up with the state-of-the-art platform, our RGS, to have the technical infrastructure, but also the flexibility to expand on anything in terms of, one example on our side was that our game engine at the very beginning didn't really support a lot of different features. And that was kind of a struggle for us because we wanted to mix the well-known features and the well-known game mechanics with innovation and new mixtures of features, new games, different themes, and so on. And we needed a bit of time to find the perfect balance between maintaining and constantly building up this very, very good platform and technical infrastructure we have right now, and simultaneously, obviously, building up something like compliance to enter regulated markets, building up the team. So the HR side of things, as I just told you, we grew from, 5 to 10 people to something around 30, then 60 to 70, and then made a very fast move with going to over 150 people. And Yeah, speaking of the games, it's, in my eyes, it's the perfect mix, and that doesn't necessarily matter which market you're targeting, because you want to, in the end, we do entertainment, and you want to satisfy all players' desires and needs. And on the pure product side of things, quickly ignoring the partnership with our partners and operators, we, in the end, our client is the player, right? And the player wants to be entertained. He wants diversity in terms of content. He wants different themes, music, presentation. He wants different mechanics, but he also enjoys certain mechanics which have proven themselves in the market. And that's what we try to develop more and more, and by now have achieved. We've just recently changed our cadence of games again, so we went to a game release every 2 weeks, which basically gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of mixing the games to satisfy different catalogs, or, like you said, categories in on the operator side, on the casino side of things.
One thing that was really noticeable at the most recent ICE was the size of your stand relative to the year before. It seems like that growth that you're talking about, the number of employees, has really been reflected in your booth presence at the exhibitions. So what would you say, you touched before on the challenges of scaling up in such a fast way, particularly over the COVID period as well. What would you say kind of the major learning curves and challenges have been, and ultimately the lessons learned?
Well, I mean, as I told you, we managed to really grow before COVID already. So I would say a good year before COVID, we started really getting the gist of it, and understanding what we need to get better at, and where the key points of our company are, and what we need to prioritize. I would say one of the most difficult things was the structure. That sounds very generalized, but the structure between these different areas I just mentioned, as in compliance, HR growth, regulated markets and being fully compliant, sustaining the best possible infrastructure in the background on the technological side of things, building the games, building something like a shelf game approach, so having the games in the shelf ready, certified, and still being able to have a very good sales and account management approach, having the best possible support, and I could go on for ages. So the balance between all of this and the perfect structure was one of the most important learning curves we had at Booming Games, and one of the biggest learning effects, I would say, and that's something which I highly value, is that we try to work and treat Booming Games as a kind of co-ownership approach. So we don't have too many hierarchies involved. Of course, you need some in order to fulfill the structure, but we want everyone in our team to participate in what we build. And through the last couple of years, and also people staying with us for many years, 5, 6, 7 years, we've developed or set up such an amazing team that we managed to basically have the structure and a great team effort implemented, which results in a very, very good product. It's something not only I and our partners in the background are proud of, but also the individual people creating our platform, getting new clients on board, entering new markets, and last but not least, obviously, our product.
Do you feel, as a growing developer within the space, do you feel a sense of responsibility to provide, if you're releasing games every 2 weeks, and you talked about a shelf approach, with a suite of games that provide kind of a variety and meet a variety of player preferences, as well as come up with innovative mechanics and features that bring something new to the table? How would you describe your portfolio relative to the rest of the industry in terms of themes and ways to win and mechanics and bonus features? What would you say is the kind of the DNA of a Booming Games slot?
I would say the great mix and the variety of games. We have games in our top 10 performers, which by now constantly change, which is also a nice example of our success lately. Just released, I think 6 of the last 7 games we released were all a massive hit. They all went among the top 10, and we had 2 climb up among the top 3 games, which is obviously a great success for us. Overall, we do since years already, and even at the beginning, we obviously didn't have the quantity, but by now we have the quantity and the quality, and that gives us the chance to mix between, I would say, mainly 3 different categories. We have the kind of classy themes, where I say you don't need to reinvent the wheel. We have the following trends in the industry. So there are games like waste-based games, mega waste games. There's cluster pay, cascading games, 3-wheelers versus 5x3 games. So different grids, and you could go on endlessly. So we obviously have a strong focus and a strong eye on the industry and see what works and what do the players like. We, in that case, though, always put our booming games touch on top of it, and that, in my opinion, was also part of the success in the recent years, because, yeah, we have a certain way of creating our games, our presentation, and, as I said already, our entertainment, to keep every game, whether it's very simple and has 1 to 2 features in there, and maybe a 3x3, like you know from the old land-based casinos, up to setting our own trends, which is the 3rd category, where we obviously want to release new features, new mechanics, new mixtures of different features ourselves. And that has worked amazingly in the recent years. So, as I said, the last 6 games were amazing, and they were mixed out of all of this. And if you find the golden middle of really trying to offer great variety, then you can offer quantity and quality simultaneously. And I can definitely tell you, all of my product guys would probably agree. Also, a simple game is not as if that would take you a month or 2. So a simple game can be very simple from the layout or from the concept, but the actual execution and how to entertain and present that game and make the player feel constantly entertained, that is something we just got very, very good at, and it's getting better and better.
Would you say that Booming Games has had its kind of breakthrough title, insofar as, you know, you think of like Book of Ra or Starburst or whatever the major slot is? A lot of like the big players in the slot space have one key slot. Would you say that Booming Games is a bit different insofar as there isn't one absolute standout game? It's the variety, as you say. It's the fact that every time a new game is released, it's your best one. Did you say that you're still yet to have, I wouldn't call it a breakthrough, but maybe a tentpole game?
It's a difficult question, yes and no. So I would say, in the end, we are same as every provider in this industry. We have our top games. So I would definitely say that we have 3 to 5, if not even 10 games, which perform extremely well. So we have, there you can also see the mix I just told you about. So we have Buffalo Hold and Win, which is a kind of classy hold and win mechanic with different jackpots you can achieve, and also involving something like free spins, where the theme is extremely entertaining and fits into the standard themes, I would say, with a Buffalo Desert kind of style hold and win. We then have something like Booming 7 Deluxe, one of our most successful games for, I would say, at least 5 years, roughly, where you can see a very, very simple 3x3 grid game with free spins and a 2-way pay in it, and a 7x multiplier in it, which is just going through the roof since day one, and has ever done so. And that game doesn't only attract mass, but also VIP players, and it's a very low volatile game. But then again, we have something like Burning Classics, which is again a classy theme, with a 5x3 grid, which is also very simple, which has been our most successful game, I would say, over the last 1 to 1.5 years, which is now slowly getting overtaken or is followed by TNT Bonanza, which is a game we just released in the recent month, I think now roughly 5 to 6 weeks ago, and it's performing extremely well. And, this again is a scattered pay game, so you cannot really say that a specific mechanic or specific themes works very, very well, but we have a good variety in there. Still, we have our 3 to 5 games. Cash Pig, I forgot, also a runner since roughly 2 to 3 years, which do very, very well.
Would you say that the iGaming industry is evolved at a fraction of the pace of other digital industries, insofar as you've spoken just then about having 3 categories of games, like the classics, the new trends, and then also looking to create your own niche type of game that might make it. Would you say that, generally speaking, across the industry, that there's something holding it back, whether it's regulation or a lack of appetite to innovate, or maybe you could even argue a sense of, well, we know this formula works, why change it? Would you say that that's a fair assessment, or would you say that kind of these accusations or statements about there being little innovation in iGaming is a bit overblown?
Well, I mean, a couple of different things. So first of all, in regards to the regulation and the compliance, new markets evolving in the recent years, but also still ongoing, I would say no, because we are not really restricted in a lot of things. We have the possibility to still be very open-minded and flexible when it comes to the entertaining part of the game. So the idea, the math, the actual execution of the game as a theme, music, presentation, etc. So there I would say no, this is more an internal exercise to always keep up with the latest regulation, with the newest regulation for new markets we enter. And obviously we always want to be 100% compliant. So that's one part of the story. In terms of the general innovation, I would also say no, because it's, it might sound a bit weird, but I sometimes compare it with, for example, producing a TV series or a movie. I mean, there are thousands and millions of them out there, and they all have a different story. And a slot machine, in a way, also has a story. It has a math model behind it where you can come up with millions of varieties, whether the math model goes more towards time on device players, the mass segment, whether it goes more towards players enjoying very high volatile games and so on. It's you cannot really compare the slot or gaming industry with something like video games, for example. Video games are not played with one hand mostly on a mobile device. Yes, you can have a Nintendo or these newest devices, and you can play on PlayStations and so on. But these games are skill games, and skill games obviously differ from games of chance in the end, I would say. And but that doesn't restrict us in any way to be as creative as possible, because that's what you need with the mass of games out there in the industry. I mean, you will know yourself, casinos, especially the well-established ones, are flooded with content. And if you want to stick out, if you want to have the players enjoy your game, your brand, your mechanics, then you need to produce good stuff. And that's what we concentrate on.
Would you say that those different categories of game that you have, those 3 different categories, would you say that those titles are designed to appeal to different demographics insofar as kind of your classics? Are they aimed at kind of experienced slot players seeking a new and exciting experience, whereas you're following the latest trends or coming up with something yourself that's targeting a younger generation of player? Or do you not see it that way? Do you just see it as be as varied as possible because that's what the operators ultimately like, because then they kind of have a bit more of a catch-all approach to getting new players in, or appealing to existing ones for that matter?
I would say both. The variety is needed because of the different geos and the different sorts of players, basically. So yes, we need a variety, and yes, every now and then, I was never a big friend of it, but you could argue that, I don't know, if you want to release a Spanish theme, that you would be tackling the Spanish market. But I would never really focus on one market only, because in the end, players in different markets also enjoy themes which they might not be super familiar with. So from a theme perspective, you can basically launch anything anywhere, except for exclusive strategies where we also have discussions with our operators, our partners basically, and then do a branded game, for example. That's sometimes a different story. In terms of the catalogs or the categories in the different casinos, there are so many categories in there that if you manage to put together a nice mixture, which is something we do a lot, so it's not necessarily always A, B, or C, as I explained to you, but it's basically how do you execute the individual game of the categories A, B, or C. And that can fit into various different categories, can suit various different players. As I mentioned, a VIP player doesn't necessarily need a high volatile game. If he enjoys another game, then he would also spend hours on a medium or even low volatile game. And the mass segment, the player, the time on device player would also, and that's what we analyzed in our BI stats and our analysis, which we do a lot, would also enjoy a high volatile game, and maybe start with a slower or a lower bet and play a bit slower, if you understand what I mean. So we try to fulfill all of it. We have, as I mentioned at the beginning, we have quite a cool team approach there. So we meet once a quarter in our offices, either in Malta or in Berlin, and meet with the entire math and product team, and then have the stakeholders involved as well. And we do brainstorming together for something like 3 or 4 days. And we split up in teams. We sit in a big room with a large whiteboard in front of it, and we basically come up with an ideal mix and then try to see, okay, do we fulfill the different categories? And yes, of course, for the evolving markets like Latin America, the US eventually, and something like Africa and so on, we obviously also try to see how can we fitting a bit more to category A or part A, how can we mix the well-established, for example, the famous themes and mechanics from the land-based casinos and land-based industry into a nice modern touch in the online world.
Would you say that Booming Games has established itself as a successful provider of slots in any specific markets? Would you say that you have a home market per se?
No, not necessarily. I think, as I told you about our growth in the recent 4 to 5 years especially, and if you start doubling your growth year on year, then you kind of see, you can analyze a lot, obviously. And we've been growing not only on the game side with a great variety or diversity, but also on different markets. So yes, sometimes it's this market growing a bit faster than the other. And then we, when we were still a bit smaller on the account management and sales side, then yes, we obviously had a larger focus or a bigger focus on this specific market and then on a new one. But in the end, we try to satisfy not only all player needs, but also all partner and operator needs. And therefore, we split and try to grow in every single market we have and concentrate on every single market we have.
As you've gone from being a startup to an up-and-coming to now an established slot specialist studio, how has the relationship with operators changed in terms of maybe the types of information that you'd share, and kind of how have those relationships matured as you've matured as an outfit?
I would say our relationship with our partners and operators is extremely good. So, first of all, I have an amazing team sitting on my end, and our account management support team, our sales team, and so on. They are doing an amazing job and trying to always keep up with everything, answer immediately, hold a very good relationship. I have my brother with us. Not sure if you know that, but my brother joined us after only a year and is our commercial officer, and obviously has a very good relationship with a lot of our clients, together with the team of account managers, sales, and also our support people. And it's also not easy for the casinos and the operators. They have a lot of relational stuff to keep up with, a lot of compliance stuff. They have tons of games they need to choose from, obviously, to see, okay, where can they get the best deal, and where can they have the best commercials, who has the best promo tools, etc., etc. And I would say, again, something I'm very proud of. 5 years ago or so, we still were, I wouldn't say begging to be able to integrate with a new client or to set up a new partnership. And we've just managed to establish one of the top tier casino or slot suppliers out there. And that's what made it a lot easier for us to have a good relationship with our clients, because in the end, our clients or the casinos want well-working games, obviously. We want well-working games, and the players who get supported with a good player account management team, a good support, and a good marketing strategy on the casino side, they want good content. And in the end, it's the content they play. And that, together with good relationships, even during COVID, it was obviously not that easy, but now people started meeting again, and our guys are traveling through the world, going to exhibitions, meeting new prospects, but also a lot with existing clients, and are trying to improve our relationship more and more, and to push booming games and our product to the best potential way.
And what is your ultimate vision for booming games? How big do you see the studio potentially becoming? I mean, going from where it was, as we said at the top of our conversation, about how there was a few of you in a room, bit family and friends type atmosphere, to where you are now. Where do you see this going?
Well, I see this going very, very big. And I have no doubts whatsoever in this anymore. Our vision has always been, and still is, to become a top-tier global online slots and games provider and supplier. And we are already in the top league, in my opinion, and we are stepping up every single week, every single month. We have a wonderful and amazing team, and a motivated team with, I think, over 35 nationalities by now, so sitting all around the world, and a motivated team with a lot of spirit in our company culture. And we are very independent, which was also a large advantage we had in, basically across the entire company history. And therefore, I see nothing in the way of achieving this vision to, become one of the top tier global game suppliers.
Exciting times. And as I said during the questions about how it's noticeable, from a media point of view, I run around a lot of stands, and it is noticeable, your growth. I'm sure that a lot of people have their eyes on you. So well done on all your success, and thank you very much for coming onto the podcast. There's a few bits and bobs I'd like to pick up on maybe in the future, about how you have had those kind of quarterly meetings and have a whiteboard and talk about roadmaps. Whilst I know you can't go into details about what you're going to do, I'd be very interested to know how those conversations go, and also potentially talking to your brother and going more into those operator relationship sides. But for the time being, I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you so much for coming on.
Been very nice with you. I would love to join again. Thanks a lot. And very exciting to be in the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, William.